It was in the middle of an ordinary dinner that everything turned upside down. My daughter, Emily, 12, bent down to pick up her napkin that had fallen to the floor. When she stood up, her face was pale, her eyes wide. She held a small, crumpled piece of paper. She handed it to me with trembling hands. On it was written, in letters cut from a magazine, "You are in danger. Don't move." At first I thought it was a joke, but Emily's expression said otherwise. She didn't blink. Her hands were shaking so badly that her fork dropped to the floor. I looked around. We were in a cozy restaurant downtown on a random Friday night, but suddenly, everything seemed ominous, as if every face around us was hiding a secret. Share this story to reach further. Subscribe to the channel, share this video on WhatsApp, and leave a comment telling me where you're listening from. I'll be very happy to read each comment. I tried to remain calm. I whispered to her, "Did you see anyone nearby? Anyone strange?" She shook her head. Then I started noticing. A man in the corner of the room, alone, fiddling with his phone without really looking at the screen. A couple eating too quickly. A woman watching us from afar and looking away whenever I looked back. I carefully took the note and hid it in my purse. I spoke to the waitress and asked for the check as if nothing were wrong. I didn't want to alarm Emily or draw attention to myself, but inside, my heart was racing. The fear was real, and my instincts were screaming, "Someone is watching us, and it's in here." Dinner turned into a minefield. I got up with Emily, and we walked slowly. We didn't run. We just walked, trying to appear normal, but I could feel eyes on our backs, and when I looked through the reflection in the glass, I knew for sure. The man in the corner got up right after. He was coming after me. I held Emily's hand tighter and whispered, "Run, now." We ran down the wet street. Our footsteps echoed off the concrete. Emily cried, asking, "Who was that man? What does he want with us?" I had no answers. I just knew I had to get away. I turned the corner and pulled her into a 24-hour pharmacy. I asked to use the phone, saying my cell phone had no signal. I called my husband in shock. He answered, and I simply said, "Come now. Restaurant downtown. Something's happening." He said he was 10 minutes away. Meanwhile, I asked the pharmacy clerk not to let anyone in without my permission. I showed her the note. She turned pale. She said she'd seen something similar, with someone else weeks before. We sat there between the shelves of medicine and cosmetics. Emily clung to me. "Mommy, who wrote that? Why were they threatening me?" And all I could say was, "I don't know, but I'm here, and you'll be okay." But inside, the fear was paralyzing. And the worst part, I'd seen a note like that too. Years ago, in college, when my husband arrived, we ran to the car. We went straight to the police station. I showed them the note, told them everything, but since there was no physical contact, just a piece of paper, the officers said it was difficult to act. It might have been a bad joke, they said, but my mother's instincts told me otherwise. This wasn't a joke. It was a warning, and it felt personal. That night, we all slept in the same room, with a padlock on the door. The light was on, and our cell phones were in hand. Emily took a while to close her eyes, and when she finally fell asleep, I lay awake, replaying the moment she handed me the paper, trying to remember every face in that restaurant, because something there didn't add up, and someone wanted us to know that. The next day I decided I would find out who was behind it, not just for myself, for Emily, for her safety, and also because that note awakened something inside me, something that had been dormant, a past I'd hidden for years, but that now seemed to have returned to face me, head on, and this time, I wasn't going to run away. The next day, after leaving Emily with my husband, I returned to the restaurant. It was empty. I discreetly asked the manager if anyone on the staff had seen anything strange the night before. She hesitated. Then she said that a week earlier, another woman had found a similar note taped to the underside of the table. But she didn't return to report anything further. She disappeared. I asked to see the security cameras. She was reluctant, but given the note and my insistence, she relented. We reviewed the dinner footage. There was the man, sitting, pretending to be fiddling with his phone, but his eyes always on us. At one point he stands up, circles the room, and, with an almost imperceptible movement, appears to be sticking something under Emily's chair. Seeing it sent chills down my spine. But what made me even more panicked was something only I would recognize. The bracelet. He wore a braided leather bracelet, black, just like someone I knew in the past. Someone I'd blocked from my mind for years. Someone who'd been involved in a dark episode from my youth. His name was Nathan. Nathan was my boyfriend for a short time in college, but within a few months, he became my worst memory. Controlling, aggressive, manipulative. One day, after an argument, I found a note in my dorm room. "You are in danger. Don't move." I left town that week. I never heard from him again. Until now. My body froze. Yesterday's note was the same. The words, the font, even the type of paper. As if he were sending a message. "I know where you are. I know who your daughter is." I ran to my car. I called my husband and told him, "He's back. I think it's him." And in that moment, everything changed. Because now, it wasn't just about me. It was about my daughter. And if Nathan was back, I needed to act before something worse happened. Because last time, I ran away. But now I'm a mother, and the only thing stronger than fear is the instinct to protect the ones we love. I spent the entire day calling people from my old town. College classmates, former professors, even a friend who became a social worker. I asked if anyone knew Nathan's whereabouts. Many said they hadn't heard from him in over 10 years. Others said he'd changed his name, but one person told me something that stopped me cold. He reappeared recently. He's living 2 towns away. I searched online. Nothing with his name, until I found a profile on an obscure social network with the nickname he used in college. The photo was recent, and despite the different beard and hair, the eyes were the same. Panic rose. He was getting closer, watching me, and now he was close enough to touch my daughter's chair. I showed everything to the police, but again, I ran into bureaucracy. Without concrete evidence of a direct threat, we can't act. But now I knew who it was. I knew it wasn't a coincidence, that the note wasn't a random scare. It was a game, a warning, a reminder of the power he thought he still held. But this time, I wasn't going to allow it. I installed cameras at home. I changed passwords. I notified Emily's school and sent an email describing the man. Everyone was on high alert. But with each passing day, the tension grew. Emily started having nightmares. She slept with me and my husband. She asked, "Mommy, is that man going to hurt us?" And all I could say was, "No, because I won't let him." Meanwhile, something was growing inside me. An old, bottled-up anger. Because for years I'd been taught to run, to keep quiet, to move on. But now, I understand that moving on without facing the past is just carrying fear disguised as overcoming. And I didn't want that for my daughter. She deserved a different ending than the one I got. So I decided I would confront Nathan, but with strategy, with safety, with evidence. I wasn't going to wait any longer. Because when you see danger approaching your daughter, you discover a strength you never knew existed. And now, it was war. A silent war, but real. 2 days later, another note arrived. But this time, it wasn't at the restaurant. It was delivered to Emily's school gate, folded and without an envelope. A security guard found it and called me immediately. When I read it, my heart sank. "You had your chance. Now, I'll talk to her." It was a clear threat, and if there had been any doubt before, there was none now. I took the note straight to the police station, but the officers said it could be a coincidence, or even someone from school trying to scare me. I exploded. "Are you waiting for him to break into my house? Waiting for my daughter to disappear?" A detective looked at me with pity. Pity. That's not what you want when you're begging for action. Pity is paralyzing, and I needed action. Emily was already different, quieter, more tense. She avoided windows. I was afraid to go to the bathroom alone. It tore me apart inside, and every time she asked me why, I remembered why I'd run away years ago, why I'd never reported it, why they wouldn't believe me, why they'd say I was exaggerating. And now, it was all happening again with my daughter. That night I dreamed of him, Nathan, telling me the same things. "You're weak. No one will listen to you." I woke up sweating. I looked to the side, saw Emily curled up asleep, and I decided, enough. I wouldn't wait for anyone else to act. I was going to expose this man myself, and to do that, I needed the complete truth, the whole story, from the beginning. I started writing, point by point. The abusive relationship, the isolation, the threats, the notes, the silence. And now, everything was happening again. I planned to post it on every social media platform, with a picture of the note, with a screenshot of his profile. I knew it was risky, but doing nothing was even more dangerous, and I wasn't going to fail Emily. The next morning, I posted everything. No full name, but with enough clues for those familiar with the story to connect the dots. The post went viral within hours. Comments from women, teachers, old colleagues. Everyone confirmed, this guy was dangerous. Someone said, I've heard similar stories. And then, a message changed everything. It was from another woman. She wrote, I also received a note, and it was him. Her testimony was chilling. She said she also dated Nathan years after me, and that when she tried to break up with him, he showed up at her work with a note hidden under her desk. You are in danger. Don't move. She had to move to another city. She filed for a restraining order, but the case was dismissed due to lack of evidence. He disappeared for a while, and now he was back. We set up a video call. We talked for hours. Her name was Rachel. Strong, determined, but her eyes were marked by old fear. When I told her about Emily's note, she cried. He's repeating everything, like it's a game, and that's exactly what it was. A sick game of control, where he didn't want to hurt her outright. He wanted to frighten her, dominate her, break her insides. Together we organized everything. Screenshots, reports, old documents. Other victims began to emerge. Women who had been stalked, manipulated, threatened. Some had never spoken to anyone before. Others, like me, had fled and remained silent. Now, they were all speaking out. And that was more powerful than any police report. I returned to the police station with everything in hand. This time, accompanied by a lawyer Rachel had recommended. We handed over the file. The detective's expression changed. Now we have something to do. A request for a protective order was filed. The case was reopened. A formal investigation began. But what gave me the greatest relief was knowing that he now knew. We were no longer alone. Emily heard everything, and even though she was scared, she smiled for the first time in days. So he'll stop? I held her hands. He'll be stopped, because now everyone knows who he is. And more than that, now she knew who we were. Women who would no longer accept fear as routine, who chose to face it, even with their hearts in their throats. And that day, I understood that when you speak the truth out loud, it doesn't disappear. It spreads, and sometimes, that's what saves. It's not shouting louder than fear. It's finding other voices and shouting together, because silence is the abuser's hiding place, and courage is the trap he never expects. In the following days, my post became news. Small local news outlets began to replicate the story. Women's Facebook groups shared the content with comments like, I've been through this. I didn't know it had a name. Others sent me private messages with their experiences, their notes, their silences. It was all devastating, and at the same time, liberating. A local TV station contacted me. They wanted to do a story. My first instinct was to decline. I wanted to protect Emily, but then I remembered the note. I remembered her expression, and I thought, how many mothers need to hear this to act sooner? I accepted the interview, but with one condition. My daughter wouldn't be exposed. They agreed. In the studio, I told her everything, my voice trembling but firm. I showed her the tickets. I told her about Nathan's history, about the pattern, about how justice was slow, but how, when women come together, the truth begins to move. I spoke with my heart in my throat, because I knew each word could be a trigger, but it could also be a key. After the article, the attacks came, comments accusing me of hysteria, exaggeration, and unresolved revenge. I was scared. I wanted to delete everything, but it was Emily who stopped me. Mom, don't let them silence you. Not after everything. And right then, it was as if my daughter had caught me at the exact moment I almost fell back into my old pattern, lowering my head. That night, I realized I was no longer just a woman telling a story. I was part of a network that was awakening, and each new story was a spark, and each spark was beginning to burn away the silence that kept these men invisible. For the first time, I wasn't just surviving, I was changing something. And the most incredible thing? Knowing that it all began with a piece of paper taped to the bottom of a chair. A threat transformed into movement. A trauma turned into a path. And Emily, she wasn't just my daughter anymore. She was a symbol of strength, of change, of everything the next generation can be, if ours has the courage now. The police called on a Wednesday night. It was almost 10 p.m. My heart sank when I saw the number. We found him. He was at the entrance to an elementary school a few miles from here, with a note in his pocket, addressed to a girl. I sat on the floor. I couldn't speak. I could only listen. He was arrested red-handed. We're taking him to the police station now. When I hung up, I went to Emily's room. She was already in her pajamas, reading. "Mommy, is everything okay?" I sat down next to her. I took a deep breath, and for the first time in weeks, I smiled. "Yes, my love, it's okay. He's been caught." Her eyes filled with tears, but it wasn't fear, it was relief, and I'd never seen that kind of expression on her face before. It was like her breath had returned. The next day, the news reported Nathan's arrest. Police revealed that there were more than 10 prepared notes at his home. Names, dates, locations. It was a pattern of harassment, calculated, systematic, and if it weren't for the public exposure, he might never have been stopped. Seeing that image on TV was surreal, but it didn't bring me pleasure. It brought me justice. Emily started sleeping alone again. She started smiling on the way to school again. She started hanging out with her friends again. But most of all, she started asking new questions. How do we protect other girls? How do we know who's dangerous? And I answered with all the honesty in the world. We're never sure. But by listening to our instincts, we start to save ourselves. And that's what saved us. An instinct, a look, a note, and the choice not to remain silent. Because in that prison, there's now a man who believed he could continue erasing women. But on the outside, there's now a girl who learned that her voice isn't just noise. It's a weapon. It's a wall. It's a shield. And she'll use it. Always. The days after the arrest were strangely quiet. It was as if the noise of fear had faded, and in its place, only its echo remained. Emily asked fewer questions. She slept more, but there was something new about her, a calm that seemed foreign. It was beautiful, but also frightening. Because when the trauma fades, we begin to feel everything that was bottled up inside. I took her to therapy. The psychologist said Emily was strong, but that her strength came from accumulated tension. She survived in alert mode. Now she needs to learn to truly relax. And that's when I understood. Our battle wasn't over. It just changed form. Healing is a long process. It doesn't happen with a man's imprisonment. It happens day by day, in time, in someone's lap, in listening. We started creating new habits. Cooking together, reading before bed, walking without using a cell phone. Little routines that said, "You're safe now." And little by little, she started laughing louder, playing without looking to the sides, trusting the present without fear of the past. And that was the greatest gift life could give me as a mother. One day I asked, "Do you think about him sometimes?" She responded with a maturity that dismantled me. "Yes, I do, but not out of fear. I think about him to remind myself that I can protect myself, and that you protected me too." That got me, because in the end, that's it. We can't erase what we've experienced, but we can transform pain into strength, and she was doing just that. And perhaps the most symbolic moment was one night at dinner, when she bent down to pick up her napkin again. She looked under her chair. She looked at me, smiled, and said, "Nothing here today," and continued eating as if it were just another night. But for me, it was the moment I understood she was coming back, being a child again, living again. Months passed, and the story didn't stop there. A group of women who were also victims of Nathan came together. They formed a support network. They created a website. They began hosting meetings, sharing information, and sharing stories. They invited me to be a part of it, and this time, I said yes, because now I knew that my pain could help someone. Emily wrote a post for the project's blog, a first-person account. She asked me not to read it until she published it. When the post came out, I read it in tears. She described how paralyzed, scared, and confused she felt. But she ended with the sentence, "My mother taught me that we don't need to understand everything to start reacting. Sometimes, we just need to trust the voice that says, 'Get out of there.'" We received messages from other mothers. They said, "I was also taught to shut up." Or, "My daughter went through something similar, and now I know what to do." And each of these messages was like a point of light on a dark map. Because if there's anything more powerful than breaking a cycle, it's preventing another one from starting in those who come after you. Emily was asked to give a short talk at a school fair about safety and listening. She told her class that, sometimes, danger doesn't look like a villain, but your body senses it. And if you feel something's wrong, speak up, even if it seems exaggerated. The whole room fell silent, and then applauded. And me? I cried, because there was the girl who once trembled with fear, teaching courage. And in that moment, I understood that this story was never just about Nathan. It was about what he tried to erase and what we rekindled. It was about transforming dread into purpose, from threat into protection, from vulnerability into tool. Because today, Emily doesn't just carry a scar, she carries a beacon. And wherever she goes, other girls will see the light. One day, I received a letter, no return address, handwritten, familiar handwriting. I opened it carefully. It was from Nathan. He wrote from prison, trying to turn the narrative around. He said it was all a misunderstanding, that he didn't want to hurt anyone, that he just wanted to have a conversation. My stomach churned. It was as if he still thought he had some kind of control over me. I showed the letter to the lawyer, who advised me to ignore it, but I needed to respond, not to him, but to myself. I wrote a single sentence back. You no longer have a place in my life, nor in my daughter's life. I never sent it. I burned the letter along with my past. Because sometimes closure doesn't come from an apology. It comes from the act of not expecting one anymore. Emily saw the ashes and asked what they were. I said, it was just a memory that's no longer useful. She understood. She hugged me and said, can we do something new now? And so began our ritual. Every week, we wrote a bad memory on a piece of paper and burned it. Little pieces of pain, turning to smoke, until there was no more fear left, only space. It was at that time that I understood that the greatest confrontation wasn't against him. It was against everything he represented. The silence, the shame, the guilt. Facing this was liberating. Emily started to smile differently. So did I. We started going out without looking back, making plans, thinking of the future as something open, not threatened. And in this process, I discovered a version of myself I never imagined I'd meet. A strong, loving, determined woman. A mother who no longer gives in, who doesn't justify abuse, who doesn't minimize the signs, because pain has taught her. But it was the choice to look her in the eye that changed everything. The day of the hearing arrived. I wasn't required to go, but I did. I sat on the bench, no makeup, no armor, just the truth. Nathan entered handcuffed. He looked at me, but I didn't look away. He tried to smile. I didn't react. For the first time, he was just an ordinary man, powerless, out of control, just someone being held accountable. The judge read the victims' accounts, 14 in total, 14 stories with a pattern, 14 pieces of evidence that he acted methodically. And now, there was no longer any doubt. The sentence came, indefinite imprisonment. And there, in that courtroom, there was no applause. There was no shouting, only a silence charged with justice and a certain kind of peace. I walked out of the courtroom with Emily by my side. She looked at me and said, you won. But it wasn't about victory. It was about the end, about closing a cycle, about knowing that this time, the ending was different, and that no girl would ever have to find a note from Nathan stuck under a chair again, because he wasn't going to touch anyone else. At home, we sat in the same place where it all began. Dinner, the chair, the scare. But now it was just an ordinary night. No paper, no panic, no haunting past. Just the two of us, safe, and that is what every child deserves. Not a castle, but a home where fear has no voice. And me, I will carry on. With scars, yes, but with purpose. Because this story doesn't end with me. It continues in every mother who listens to her instincts, in every daughter who feels protected, in every woman who chooses to speak out. Because in the end, silence protects the aggressor, but the truth sets you free. Today, that chair is still here at home. Emily wanted to keep it, not as a reminder of her fear, but as proof that she overcame it. Sometimes I look at it and remember the night everything changed, and I think it could have been just another trauma, another story swallowed, but it wasn't, because we chose to face it. We chose to act. Emily is 13 now. She's grown up so fast, but she's sweet, observant, and strong in a way I never was at her age. The other day she said to me, "Mommy, if I ever have a daughter, I want her to know she can run to me too." And that gave me goosebumps, because I know exactly what it means to break a cycle. And that is one of the greatest legacies anyone can leave. I keep sharing our story, not to relive the pain, but to prevent new ones. Every time someone hears, comments, shares, a new alarm goes off in some other woman, somewhere else. And maybe, just maybe, this will prevent another Emily from finding a note with fear in her eyes. Maybe the world will change a little at a time, with courage, with truth. I'm still afraid sometimes, afraid that the trauma will return in the form of a dream, that Emily will shut down, that the world will be cruel to other girls. But today I know, fear isn't weakness. It's part of our struggle. And when we face it, it diminishes. And when we talk about it, other voices join in. And when we act, everything begins to change. And if you've made it this far, know this: your story matters. Even if it seems small, even if it seems forgotten, even if no one believed it before, it matters. And it could be the spark someone else needs to ignite their own courage. Because in the end, a chair, a note, and a voice can change everything. If this story touched you, share with someone who needs to hear this right now. Subscribe to the channel, activate the bell. Here you will find real stories with truths that matter. Leave it in the comments where you're listening from. I read each one with care. And remember, you are not alone. Your voice is your protection, and you have the right to use it, always. See you in the next video.